weren't even crying loudly. Maybe it was just your eyes getting wet. Maybe you were sitting quietly on the bathroom floor or on the edge of the bed, holding something in the way people do when they don't want anyone to know. And then your dog walked in. They didn't bark, they didn't bring a toy, they didn't do any of the things they normally do when they want your attention. They just came and sat next to you, maybe pressed their head against your leg, maybe looked up at your face with an expression that felt impossibly like they understood. Most people assume it's a coincidence, or they say their dog just wanted food or warmth or happened to walk in at the right moment. But neuroscience has spent the last 2 decades studying exactly this moment. And what researchers have found doesn't just explain why your dog came to you, it changes what you understand about the kind of mind living inside that animal. Let's start with the obvious question. Can your dog actually tell that you're sad? Not in the vague, intuitive sense people mean when they say their dog is empathetic, but literally, neurologically, does your dog's brain register your emotional state as information it can read and respond to? The answer is yes, and the mechanism behind it is more sophisticated than almost anyone expected. In 2016, researchers at the University of Lincoln and the University of Sao Paulo ran a joint study published in the journal Biology Letters. They showed 17 dogs images and played audio simultaneously, but they deliberately mismatched them. A happy face with a sad voice, a sad face with a happy voice. Dogs consistently oriented longer toward the combinations that matched. Happy face, happy voice. Sad face, sad voice. This means your dog isn't just reacting to one signal, your tone of voice or your posture or your expression alone. They are integrating multiple streams of emotional information simultaneously and cross-referencing them to build an accurate picture of how you feel. That's not instinct, that's perception. But here's where it gets deeper. In 2012, researcher Deborah Custance and Jennifer Mayer at Goldsmiths University in London ran an experiment that became one of the most cited studies in canine emotional research. They had owners and strangers alternate between two conditions, humming a simple tune and pretending to cry. The dogs didn't approach during humming. They didn't show particular interest in the stranger or the owner just sitting quietly. But when either person, owner or complete stranger, began to cry, 15 out of 18 dogs approached them. They oriented toward the crying person. They made physical contact. They displayed submissive, gentle behavior, lowered bodies, soft eyes, quiet nudging. The critical detail? The dogs approached strangers who were crying just as readily as they approached their own owners. This rules out the simplest explanation, that your dog comes to you when you're sad because they've learned that sad you gives different rewards than happy you. That's conditioning. What Custance found isn't conditioning. It's something closer to a cross-species empathic response. Your dog doesn't comfort you because it benefits them in that moment. Something in their brain moves them towards suffering in anyone and drives them to make contact. But why? Where does that come from? Because wolves don't do this. Chimpanzees, our closest genetic relatives, don't reliably do this. The capacity your dog has to read your emotional state, to respond to it, to physically move towards you when you're in pain, that wasn't always there. It was built over thousands of years, specifically for you. Geneticists have identified something remarkable in the domestic dog genome. Dogs carry mutations in genes associated with social bonding, eye contact seeking, and human-directed attachment that wolves, even wolves raised by humans from birth, simply don't have. One of them is a variation in the gene that regulates oxytocin receptor sensitivity. Oxytocin, as you may know, is the neurochemical behind bonding, trust, and empathy. The dogs that carry this variation are measurably more responsive to human emotional cues. They gaze longer, they approach faster, they're more attuned. And here's the part that should genuinely stop you. This mutation wasn't trained into dogs. It was selected across 15,000 years of living alongside humans, in the same camps, around the same fires, through the same losses. The dogs that responded to human emotion, that noticed when something was wrong, that came closer instead of pulling away, those dogs survived better, were kept longer, were fed, were protected, were loved. The ones that didn't respond drifted back to the edges. Generation after generation, the dogs that stayed were the ones that could feel something when you felt something. Your dog didn't learn to respond to your tears. Evolution built an animal that couldn't not respond. Now here's the part that almost nobody talks about, and it matters. In 2019, a research team at Linköping University in Sweden, led by Lena Roth, measured long-term cortisol levels, the stress hormone, in 58 dog owner pairs. Not a spike from a single moment, long-term accumulation captured in hair samples, reflecting weeks and months of emotional history. The levels were synchronized: stressed owner, stressed dog; calm owner, calm dog. And when they looked at which direction the relationship ran, which one was driving the other, the answer was clear. The owner's cortisol was predicting the dog's, not the reverse. Your dog isn't just observing your emotional state from a distance. Their own nervous system is being shaped by yours. Your sadness doesn't just reach them like a signal they pick up. It moves through them, which means when your dog presses against you when you cry, they are not a passive comfort object. They are an animal whose own stress response has been activated by yours and who is choosing, in that state, to stay close anyway. That is not a small thing. But there's a question buried inside all of this that researchers only recently started asking properly. When your dog comes to you and makes contact, when they press their head against your leg and hold still, what is that doing to you? In 2014, researchers at the University of Asabu in Japan measured oxytocin levels in dog owner pairs during physical contact. Just 10 minutes of contact, petting, closeness, mutual gaze, produced measurable drops in cortisol and surges in oxytocin in both the owner and the dog simultaneously. But a 2023 study at Uppsala University went further. They measured the effect of dog contact specifically during induced stress. Participants completed tasks designed to spike anxiety and then sat either alone, sat with a friend, or sat with their dog. The dog condition produced the fastest return to baseline cortisol, faster than the human friend. The physical presence of a calm, bonded animal, one whose nervous system is synchronized with yours, appears to regulate your stress response in ways that human contact doesn't fully replicate. Researchers believe the mechanism involves multiple systems at once: the tactile warmth, the rhythmic breathing, the nonverbal, non-judgmental nature of the contact. There's nothing to explain to your dog, no narrative to maintain, no reaction to manage. They already know something is wrong, and they came anyway. There's a detail from the Custon study I didn't mention earlier because it's the detail that changes the whole picture. After each trial, the researchers noted not just whether the dogs approached, but how they approached. The dogs that went to the crying person didn't bounce over excitedly like they would for play or food. They moved slowly, bodies low, tails in a gentle, uncertain wag. They made contact softly, a nudge, a lean, a head placed quietly in a lap. The researchers described it as behavior consistent with an attempt to provide comfort, not solicited. Your dog wasn't coming to you for reassurance, they were trying to give it. And for the dogs that sat with strangers, animals who had never met this person before, something still activated, something that said, "This being is in pain, I should go to them." 15,000 years ago, a wolf came close enough to a fire to feel its warmth and saw a human grieving by it. And something in whatever passed for its heart moved it closer instead of away. There's one thing I need you to pay attention to, because most owners miss it entirely. Your dog's ability to absorb your emotional state is not infinite. Research on chronic stress synchronization, the long-term cortisol studies, shows that dogs living in persistently high-stress households carry elevated cortisol baselines that don't reset between events. They're not just reacting to individual moments of sadness, they're carrying the accumulated weight of your emotional history. And dogs under chronic emotional load show specific behavioral signals that owners often misread. Increased clinginess is usually noticed, but the subtler signs, reduced play interest, increased vigilance, sleep disruption, loss of appetite, those get attributed to aging or mood or a bad week. If your dog has been your emotional anchor through a long, difficult period, they may be carrying more than you realize. Their nervous system has been running alongside yours. That's a profound gift, but it has a cost. The same animal that absorbs your pain when you cry might need something back from you on the ordinary days. Not just feeding and walks, calm, play, moments of genuine lightness that give their nervous system a rest. They gave that to you when you needed it. You can give that back. So the next time you're sitting somewhere quiet and you feel your eyes getting wet and you hear your dog's footsteps coming down the hallway, remember what's actually walking through that door. Not a pet who happened to wander in, not an animal responding to a conditioned cue, an animal whose genome was rewritten over 15 millennia to feel something when you feel something, whose nervous system is synchronized so deeply with yours that your cortisol and theirs move together, who crossed the room not because there was anything in it for them, but because something ancient and biological and genuinely close to love said, go to them. The science doesn't make that moment smaller. It makes it one of the most extraordinary things happening between two species anywhere on this planet. And it happens in your living room on a Tuesday when no one is watching. If this changes how you see your dog, subscribe to this channel. We're only just getting started decoding the science behind what your pet is really trying to tell you. And drop a comment below. I want to know, has your dog ever come to you in a moment like this? What did they do? Because the next video goes somewhere even stranger. We looked at what your dog does when you cry. Next, we're looking at what happens when your dog thinks you're the one who needs protecting. And the neuroscience behind it will completely change how you see that animal standing between you and the front door.